Welcome to Simply Legal. I'm your host, Geraldine Warren, longtime Medfield resident and practicing attorney here in Medfield. Each month I present a topic that I hope the viewers find not just interesting but also useful. I believe today will be no exception. We'll be discussing Medicare and ways to fill the Medicare gaps. I have with me today Charlie Estes, who is also a longtime Medfield resident. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Sure. Would you like to just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Lived in Medfield since 1989. Got my insurance licenses in the early 2000s. I have my life, accident, and health. And there's a lot of different ways you can go with insurance. And I was dabbling with some life insurance and some annuities. But in 2006, Part D, Medicare Part D, came out. And that was kind of my start into the Medicare world. There were a lot of companies looking for agents to help out with that. It was very confusing for seniors. And 2006 was my start into the Medicare world.
So that was what really made you focus on the senior insurance market, was when the Part D came out?
Yes, I found a great niche with the seniors, able to sit with them face to face, discuss their options for a Part D plan, which that alone can be very confusing. And that was my start. It was a great opportunity for me, and now I have hundreds of senior clients. That's
great. I think for the viewer's sake, I think before we talk about filling the gaps with supplemental insurance options, I think we should probably review basically what is available as far as Medicare goes. And I mean the original Medicare, which most people know is the A, B, and then if they want to buy into a D. And also then there's the Medicare Advantage plan, which most people consider it's called, Medicare C. Right. So to start the review, you want to just talk about the original Medicare and what's included in the A and the B?
Sure. Medicare Part A, I like to say, is an entitlement. It is available to most people when they turn 65. As long as you've worked your 10 years or your 43 months quarters, you've paid tax dollars through the Social Security system, and you qualify for your Medicare Part A. Your Part B is your medical. It is
like doctor's office visits?
Like non-hospital services, excuse me. Part A is your hospital, inpatient hospital. Your Part B is your non-hospital services, your doctor visits, day surgery, things like that. Your Part B is, you have to do an application for that. Now, if you're still working, if you're 65 years old and still working under a group plan, you can stay on that group plan. You can apply for your Part B later on under a special enrollment. But Part A is free. It's an entitlement. As long as you've worked your 10 years, your 43-month quarters. Part B, typically most Americans pay $104 a month, and that comes out of your Social Security check. Now, there are gaps in Medicare.
Well, we're going to talk about the gaps, but before we get into the gaps, I want to talk about, like, in the Part A, are there any, I know it's hospital stay, is there a limit on how many days they will cover? Or?
Sure. It's your first 60 days. On Part A, there is a deductible of $1,216. If you just had original Medicare and no other insurance, you would be responsible for $1,216. And that deductible can happen every 60 days. So if you go to the hospital January 1st, get a bed, get admitted, stay overnight, and come home the next day, and 2 months later, March 3rd, you go back into the hospital, you're responsible for that deductible again. If you're in the hospital days 1 through 60, it's just that one-time deductible. Days 61 through 90, you pay $304 a day copay. And then days 91 and after, it's $608.
So it can get expensive, especially if you don't have the filling the gap insurance.
Yep.
Now, what about Part D? I know that gets so complicated, and I know with the Affordable Care Act, we're going to close the donut hole by 2020, and that the donut hole is getting smaller and smaller. Right. But do you want to just tell the viewers a little bit about Part D and how they can buy into the Part D?
Sure. And these are the interesting questions that the seniors throw at me. Medicare Part D is your drug plan. It's your standalone prescription drug plan. In Massachusetts, there are about 21 to 25 individual companies, drug companies, doing business with Medicare. What's confusing about Part D, the service that I provide, is all these drugs are classified by tiers, tier 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and higher. And typically the higher the tier, the more expensive the medication. I do the shopping around for the client. The clients voluntarily give me a list of their medications. I go onto the Medicare.gov website, and all the plans will show up in Massachusetts, from least expensive to most expensive. And I will do a printout and show my clients their options into Part D. It's confusing because there are high premiums and low premiums, there are deductibles, and there are co-pays. But the service that I provide is to get my clients from point A to point B. Point A is usually January 1st, the start of the year, to the end of the year, spending the least amount of money out of their pocket.
So is there an open enrollment period for the Part D plan?
There is. Open enrollment is October 15th to December 7th. It's been that way for a couple of years now. So once a year you can change your drug plan. Typically when you're in a drug plan, you're in it for the year. There are a couple special enrollment periods that you can get into if you move out of state, or if you become a member of Prescription Advantage, which we'll get into in a little bit. But there is an open enrollment from October 15th to December 7th. You can change your drug plan at that time, and believe me, all my clients start calling me at that time, and they'll say, Charlie, my meds have changed. Should I stay in the drug plan that I'm in? Should I change? What do you think? Now,
when does the penalty for not going into a Part D come into effect? Is it if you miss the first enrollment period? Because a lot of people think that, some of the viewers may believe that it's optional. And while I guess it is optional to buy into a Part D, if you don't choose to, you will be penalized in the future if you then do decide to have a Part D and you haven't had one in the past.
You are correct, and I get that question all the time. I'll sit with people that say, Charlie, I don't take any meds. Why should I even be in a Part D drug plan? And it's for two reasons. Reason one is if you don't enroll in a Part D plan, you're going to get a penalty when you do decide to enroll. It's a 1% penalty, whatever the national average is. Typically, it's around $35. It's a 1% penalty, but that penalty stays with you every month for the rest of your life. So if you don't enroll when you should, you're going to get penalized. Number two, if you don't enroll, now it's mid-year, it's July, and the doctor says you have to start taking these medications. Guess who's going to be paying full amount? You are, the client. So you want to have that protection. There are some reasonable drug plans out there at low cost, so you want to be in a Part D drug plan for those two reasons.
Now, moving from the original Medicare that everyone knows as the AB, and then with the buy-in for the D, is the Medicare Advantage plan, which is more like what people consider the Medicare C plan. It's kind of an HMO. Do you want to just review that for the viewers?
Yep. And Medicare Part C is Medicare Advantage, and that takes over for original Medicare. You're still in Medicare, but it takes over as far as the primary insurance. So lately, this year, the Part C plans are what we call MAPD, MA, Medicare Advantage, PD, prescription drug coverage. MAPD, it's all included. Some are just MA only, some don't have a prescription drug plan, but you can't get a standalone drug plan with a Medicare Advantage plan. So you should get both, or just not have a drug plan. The plans now are HMOs, which an HMO is a health maintenance organization. It's a network of doctors. So you want to make sure that your doctor is in the network, and the specialists are in the network, and your hospitals are in the network.
That's very important, and I want the viewers to understand that, because some people that choose to go into the Medicare Advantage will then say, oh no, I can't have the doctor I used to have, I can't go to the hospital I used to go to. So that is a very important point that I think that the viewers should understand, that if they choose that they should make sure that their doctors and their hospitals in the network.
Right. Here's the advantage of Medicare Advantage. The premiums are generally a lot less than a supplemental plan. But there are co-pays. So the Medicare Advantage plans, you're going to pay a copay most of the time, every time you use that service. A Medicare Advantage plan will also throw in some things like dental or vision, which a supplement plan doesn't necessarily do. A supplement plan, it has to be a Medicare approved service for the supplement plan to have it to pick up that service. Medicare Advantage can be great for savings if you're fairly healthy. If you only see your doctor once or twice a year, they can be a great way to go. Just like a drug plan, you can change your Medicare Advantage plan once a year during the open enrollment, October 15th to December 7th. But you want to, and that's what I do as an insurance agent, make sure all my clients' doctors are in the network, the hospital that they're going to go to is in the network. Because if you go out of network, then you will be, you will be stuck with higher prices.
Okay. Well, now that we've kind of reviewed the original Medicare AB and the Part C Medicare plan, now I thought we could then move over to how to fill in the gaps of the plans.
Sure.
So you want to go and talk a little bit about filling the gap?
Sure. And this is all in the book, Medicare and You. I always tell my clients, when you get into Medicare, you kind of have three ways to go, three basic ways. You got Medicare, basic Medicare A and B. You can do nothing. You can do nothing, but you're going to be subject to a lot of copays and gaps. Okay, you're taking a big risk with that. So that's option one. Option two is you can get a Medicare supplemental plan and a standalone Part D drug plan, which I think is the best coverage. It may not be right for everybody, but I think it's the best coverage, because the supplemental plan is going to cover any of the gaps in Medicare. As long as your doctor accepts primary Medicare, then you can go to any doctor, any hospital with a Medicare supplemental plan. I have clients that go to Florida for the winter, go to Arizona for the winter. They can use a supplemental plan in any state as long as the doctor accepts and the hospital accepts original Medicare, which most of them do.
Are there a lot of supplemental plans available to the?
Another good question. There's 5 or so major carriers in Massachusetts, and to be quite honest, they cover exactly the same thing. The premiums are different. So all supplemental plans are the same. All Medicare supplemental plans are the same. And in Massachusetts, there's 2 kinds. There's a supplement 1 and a core plan. The supplement 1 is the more robust plan. It covers everything, picks up the hospital deductible, the Part B deductible, picks up the 20%. And that's what a supplement plan does. Those are the major gaps. When you go to the hospital, it's going to pick up that $1,216. If you have any doctor's appointments, it's going to pick up the 20%, and it's going to pick up the annual $147 Part B deductible. The difference is the premiums, really. So if it's a supplemental plan, that's secondary insurance. Your Medicare is primary. Your Medicare is going to get billed first, and the supplement plan is going to pick up the gaps as long as they're approved Medicare services.
Now, with the Part C, is there supplemental insurance that gets involved with Part C? Because Part C is an HMO.
Yeah,
so.
Part C is different. And here's what happens, and this is interesting. You'll see a lot of commercials during the open enrollment about zero premium plans or $20, $30, $40 premium plans. When a person enrolls in a Medicare Part C plan, I tell my clients this all the time. Your Part A, go back to Medicare Part A, your Part A is free when you turn 65. You know why it's free? Because you paid for it all your working life. It's an entitlement. When a person enrolls in a Medicare Part C plan, that becomes the primary insurance. So when you see a zero premium Medicare Part C plan, where does the money come from? It comes from the federal government. Medicare gives approximately $10,000 a year per person to that Part C company, and that Part C company is now the primary insurance, and they handle all your Medicare benefits. Now, Medicare Advantage, Medicare Part C, same thing. The benefits have to be equally as good as original Medicare. So that's where the money comes from. But you're in a network of doctors. As long as your doctor's in the network, it could be a great way to go for a lot of people. You will pay copays for your services, and it is an HMO. An HMO is a health maintenance organization, and that's a network of doctors.
Well, and what about the Part D? When you were talking, when we first were mentioning Part D, now is that part of the supplemental insurance, or is that just apart from that, another premium that they have to pay?
Yeah, you can have original Medicare and a standalone Part D plan with no supplement. You can have original Medicare, a supplemental plan that covers basically the gaps for doctors and hospital, and a standalone Part D plan. But if you're in a Medicare Advantage plan, you can't have a standalone Part D drug plan, because most of the Medicare Advantage plans come with their own Part D drug plans.
Okay. You mentioned, though, that sometimes it doesn't. What happens then?
It's some people chose to, there's a few around that they're MAs, they're Medicare Advantage with no drug coverage. People do it because they say, I'm not taking any meds and I want a lower premium. The risk they're taking is they have no drug coverage. And then when they do decide to enroll in a Part D drug plan, they're going to get hit with a little penalty. So there are a few around. I just had a client the other day who just had an MA plan, and we were able to change her through a special enrollment because now she's taking prescription medications.
Okay, so there's an open enrollment period, and what is the special enrollment period? Do you want to explain
Good
that
question.
a little bit?
Probably the biggest one I do. We'll go back to Medicare Part D. There are two programs that I show my clients that can help them defer the cost of their medications, lower their costs. One is Prescription Advantage. Prescription Advantage is a state pharmaceutical assist program. Every state in the country has a state pharmaceutical assist program. If a person is not a member of Prescription Advantage and I can get them to become a member, it's a free program. It's based on income. The number is 1-800-AGE-INFO, and I can give that information out after. They're out of Worcester. They're wonderful to work with. If I can get a client to become a member of Prescription Advantage, they are allowed a one-time special enrollment into a Part D drug plan or an MAPD, a Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan. That's one option. The other option is a federal program called LIS, which is Low Income Subsidy. You call Social Security, you talk to them and see if you qualify for LIS, Low Income Subsidy. That's a wonderful program because if you can get into that, that will pay your monthly premium for your Part D drug plan. Your co-pays will be tremendously low, $2, $3, $5, very, very inexpensive. So those are the two programs. Those are some special enrollments we can do.
So those are the state and the federal programs
federal, yep.
that allow you to do that. Now, how do they determine low income? Do they go on the private?
That's something you deal with them. It's based on your Social Security check, maybe what you have in assets. That's their call on what they look at. But I've been able to. Prescription Advantage is typically easier to qualify for than LIS through Social Security. Your income's going to be fairly on the low side with LIS, but I've helped a lot of clients once they get that benefit. The drug costs are much lower.
When the insurance companies are looking at the premiums for the supplemental, do they take income into consideration at all?
No. It's based if you can afford it or not. If and just to be kind of generic here, of the 5 or 6 main carriers in the state on the supplemental plans, the premiums for the core plan, there's core and supplement. Core basically just picks up the 20% for your non-hospital services. You're still subject to the Part A deductible in the hospital. So the core plan's around $100, and the supplement one is around $200. Now some are a little cheaper, and some are a little bit more. And if you're new to Medicare, if it's your first time into Medicare, companies will give you a 15% discount your first year, 15% discount off the premium, a 10% your second year, and a 5% your third year on the supplemental plans.
Now, are premiums determined sometimes by the condition of the client? Like if I know with pre-existing conditions you don't have to now, right. You have to still be able to get insurance with pre-existing right. conditions. But does it affect the premiums with regards to the supplemental insurance?
And one of the things, since I got in the business in 2006, Massachusetts is a guaranteed issue state. And you cannot be denied health insurance on pre-existing conditions. Whereas I have other associates that sell insurance like down in Florida or other states, and people can get denied, or in years past they were denied based on their health conditions. But in Massachusetts, it's a guaranteed issue state.
Okay, but would it affect your premiums?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
So, but you can shop around though the premiums as far as, or
yes.
are they basically about the same?
Well, I think if you take a good look, there's some considerable savings on some of the supplemental plans. Some might be with the discounts. Some might be as low as in the 160s if you're new to Medicare per month, and some might be over $200. So they all cover the same thing.
Well, the gap, though, in Medicare A, especially with hospitalizations, it would seem that a majority of the people would need a supplemental insurance. Would you agree with that?
I agree. And this is what happens a lot of time. If I have a person with serious health issues, the Medicare Advantage plan isn't always the best. Some of my clients, I call them a young 65, they just started Medicare. They may opt to go into a Medicare Advantage plan because they're fairly healthy. But as their health needs change, I think the best insurance is
So you
the
can switch
supplemental.
back and forth
You can once a
once
year.
the open enrollment
Right.
period is.
But-
And it's the same open enrollment period, isn't it?
Right,
The
it's
October.
the same open enrollment, October 15th to December 7th. But a lot of people don't know this. A Medicare supplement plan you can change at any time. You don't. There's no open enrollment for Medicare supplement. Drug plans and Medicare Advantage, you have to deal with that open enrollment. So, example, I have clients who are healthy. They want to go with the core plan. They just want to cover the 20% when they go to the doctors. They know they have some scheduled surgery coming up. They bump up to the Supplement 1 plan to cover their hospital expenses. So you can change a supplemental plan at any time.
Oh, that's good to
A
know.
lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, that could be a savings for some
It's a,
people.
it's a big savings. Yep.
So also, when we're talking about the Advantage, so you can switch back to the original Medicare if you choose to do that, if you feel that the HMO plan, the Part C, isn't working for you during the open enrollment. Is there a special enrollment period for that too, to switch out if you really feel like you're not getting what you need
Yes.
from the HMO?
Yep. If you typically you can, if you don't like the HMO during the open enrollment, October 15th to December 7th, switch out for a January 1st start. There's also a period from January 1st to February 15th. If you want to go back to original Medicare, you can do that. So there's a period of a month and a half where you can get out of that Medicare Advantage plan in that year you're in and go back to original Medicare.
Well, I know that it can be kind of confusing. There's a lot of numbers that are involved with, the deductibles and co-pays and stuff. So I thought it might be worthwhile to kind of review for the viewers, exactly what you were talking about as far as, the gaps and then how you can fill the gap so that they can get a clear picture. Because I know just in our conversation, we've been kind of going back and forth. So for the viewers, it might be better if we can just kind of summarize so they understand, okay, we have original,
Yep.
A, B, and then the D, and this is what you can do to fill the gaps. And then if you have the Advantage plan, you really don't fill the gap because it's the HMO plan. So do you want to go ahead and try to do
Sure.
like a summary
See
for
what
them?
I, see what I can do. Again, as I say, when you get into Medicare, you have three options. So let's say you're 65 years old and you have original Medicare. You have A and you've applied for your Part B. And you realize that your Part B is going to, the premium is $104 a month for most Americans. It may be higher if your income is high. It may be high, but most people pay $104, okay? The big gap in Part A is the hospital deductible, the $1,216. So if you just have Medicare and you land in the hospital, you get a bed, you get admitted, and you stay overnight, you're subject to that $1,216. That's gap number one in Part A. Part B, your gaps are, the Part B deductible is $147 annually. It's once a year. So if you just had Medicare and you went to the doctors and the doctor visit, let's say, was $200, you're responsible for the first $147 and then 20% of that the rest of the year. So that 20% can be costly, especially if the doctor's having you do CAT scans and MRIs and things like that. That can get expensive. So you want to have that supplemental insurance or a Medicare Advantage plan to help cover those costs.
Now, in the Medicare A, switching out from just hospitalization, what about the nursing home? Will Medicare A cover any of the nursing home?
It doesn't cover nursing home, but rehab is good to know this. It's a Medicare rule. The first 20 days in rehab are covered under original Medicare. With a Supplement 1 plan, you're going to get 100 days in Medicare. So that can be helpful. If you just have the core plan, you're going to get the 20 days. So again, the Supplement 1 is more robust. It gives you 100 days in rehab. It'll pick up all the gaps in Medicare, but it doesn't cover nursing home, no.
In order to have it cover the rehab, you have to be admitted to the hospital and then transferred into the hospital?
They say you're supposed to stay
3 days.
3 days in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then,
That has become a problem. I know that a lot of us that are in the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys have been addressing the fact that some hospitals now are just admitting people for observation so that Medicare is not going to cover the hospital stay when they're transferred into the nursing home. So we're just letting the public know that make sure if you're in the hospital and you need to go into the nursing home that you need to be admitted to the hospital. Right. That's an important part. The other thing is it used to have to show that you were improving. It was an improvement standard. And there was case law, the Jimmo case, that said that you don't have to show that.
The rules are changing also for a physical too. If they call them wellness visits now. If you're new to Medicare, you're entitled to a one-time physical. But now, I guess a wellness visit is a little bit different than a full physical, and what gets picked up and what doesn't.
And they've also taken away some of the deductibles, or the copays, I should say, for any of the preventative care that seniors may need. There's no longer copay required.
Yes, and the Medicare Advantage plans provide a lot of that preventative stuff. Mammograms, colonoscopies, they provide a lot of that, a lot of those services. Yes.
Well, I know for the viewers, Medicare can be confusing sometimes when you're first signing up, and a lot of times with the Part D it can be very confusing. There's a lot of options out there, so it is important to ask an insurance person that just focuses on seniors, maybe what's the best plan for you to fill in the gap. And I really appreciate you being my guest today.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
And I want to tell the viewers, remember, it's just always simply legal.
Production support provided by Medfield.tv. Access to our community.